Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. This next story starts with a simple text, "Can you pick me up?" and ends with one sibling finally saying, "Enough is enough." But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. When family helps family goes too far. I sold my car last year. It was a deliberate choice. Between insurance, maintenance, gas, and parking headaches, owning a car just wasn't worth the stress anymore. I decided to rely on public transit, ride shares, and the occasional rental if I really needed it. It hasn't been perfect, but I've made it work. My commute's predictable, my budget's healthier, and honestly, I feel lighter without the constant car drama. But apparently, my brother thinks I made this choice just to inconvenience him. Even after I sold my car, he still texts me constantly asking for rides. Need a lift to the gym, to a friend's party, to work? He'll send me messages like, "Hey, what are you doing? Can you come pick me up?" And every time I have to remind him I do not have a car. Last night was the final straw. At around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from him. "Hey, my flight gets in at 2 a.m. Can you pick me up?" I stared at my phone for a minute, then replied, "I don't even have a car, remember?" His response came almost instantly, like he'd been ready for that argument. "Well, you could rent one or take a cab to the airport and ride back with me." I had to read it twice. He actually wanted me to spend money out of my pocket and drag myself out of bed in the middle of the night just so he wouldn't have to take an Uber like everyone else. I texted back, "That's not happening. I don't have the money or the energy to rent a car for your convenience. Just grab a cab or a shuttle." And then came the guilt trip. "Wow, okay, guess I'll figure it out myself. You've gotten really selfish lately." That one stung because I know he meant it. He genuinely thinks it's selfish of me to have boundaries, to refuse to rearrange my entire life around his transportation needs. Here's the thing. When I had a car, I didn't mind helping out occasionally. Family helps family. But over time, it became less occasional and more expected. He stopped asking with any sense of courtesy, and it turned into, "You're free, right? Pick me up." Now, even though I physically cannot give him a ride, he still acts like I owe him one. And when I tell him no, suddenly I'm the bad guy. It's exhausting. It's not that I don't care about him, I do. But I'm not his personal driver, and my time and money aren't free just because we share DNA. Family doesn't mean free labor on demand. I think I'm done explaining myself every single time. If he asks for a ride again, I'm just going to reply, "Nope, can't do it," and leave it at that. Because at the end of the day, I sold my car for me, to make my life less stressful. I'm not about to let him drag me back into the very stress I work so hard to escape. If that makes me selfish, then maybe selfish is exactly what I need to be. Do a Uno reverse and start calling him at odd hours and asking for a ride. He can't because he doesn't have a car? Well, neither do you. Congrats on selling your car, but you might have to block certain entitled a-holes. And our second story. You're just a number, until I proved I was worth $300K. I'd been working at this tech company for 3 years, and in that time, I'd slowly become the person everyone leaned on. I was the one staying late to fix last-minute bugs, jumping on calls with angry clients, cleaning up mistakes other people made, and quietly keeping everything from falling apart. When 2 of my teammates quit within a few months of each other, I stepped up. I figured it was temporary, that management would replace them soon. Weeks passed, then months. Nobody new was hired. Instead, my temporary extra work became my normal workload, double what I'd originally been hired for. I didn't complain at first. I believed in the work. I wanted to be seen as a team player, maybe even get recognized for going above and beyond. But recognition never came. No raise, no promotion, not even a simple thank you. By year 3, I was exhausted and burned out. I realized I was doing the work of 3 people for the salary of 1. So I finally worked up the courage to ask for what I deserved. I scheduled a one-on-one with my manager and laid everything out. The extra responsibilities I'd taken on, how I was single-handedly managing our biggest revenue-generating client, and how I felt my compensation no longer matched the value I brought to the company. He laughed. Not a chuckle, not an awkward cough, an actual laugh, like I just told a joke. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, word for word, "Look, everyone's just a number here. There are 50 resumes on my desk that could replace you tomorrow." I just sat there for a second, stunned. I'd been killing myself for this company, and this was his response? Not even a negotiation, just a reminder that I was disposable. I left his office furious, went home that night, and immediately updated my resume. If I was just a number, they could go ahead and find one of those 50 replacements he was so sure about. Over the next 2 weeks, I started quietly job hunting. I still showed up every day, still did my job, including handling our most important client, who frequently emailed management to praise my work. Those emails were never acknowledged or forwarded to me, but I heard about them directly from the client. That hurt almost as much as my manager's laugh. Then I got an offer, not just any offer, but one from a direct competitor. 40% more salary, better benefits, and clear opportunities for advancement. I didn't even hesitate. The next morning, I walked into my manager's office and handed him my notice. Suddenly, Mr. Everyone's Just a Number looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. He scrambled to offer me a counter. "We can match that," he said quickly. "You're valuable to the team. We don't want to lose you." I smiled and said calmly, "Thanks, but I've already made my decision." For the first time in 3 years, I walked out of his office with my head held high. I wrapped up my 2 weeks, left everything organized for whoever would eventually replace me, and said goodbye to my coworkers who were supportive but already dreading how much extra work they'd have to pick up without me. And then, a month after I started my new job, I got the best news of all. One of my former coworkers texted me, "You'll never guess what just happened. Your client asked where you went. When they found out you'd left, they pulled their $300K a year contract and followed you to your new company." I nearly laughed out loud. Now, not only am I making 40% more with a company that values me, but I also brought that massive client with me. My old manager had to sit in front of executives and explain how they lost their biggest revenue stream, all because they wouldn't give me a fair raise when I asked. Turns out I wasn't just a number after all. These days, I'm happier, less stressed, and finally appreciated for what I bring to the table. And every time I get paid, I can't help but think about that meeting and my manager's smug little laugh and smile, because leaving was the best career move I've ever made. You're getting paid more, working somewhere that actually values your contributions. And your old boss has to explain to his higher-ups why he let a star employee and a major client slip through his fingers. That's corporate karma at its finest. And our last story. Time to get lessons, Karen. I live in a small town somewhere between cornfields and the old highway that leads to the big city. Here, everyone knows each other, at least on the "hey, how are you" level, and if you hear a siren, it's either the firefighters running another drill or Billy from the trailer park letting his furnace die again. After my heart attack, my son became extra watchful. He comes by twice a week, brings soup in plastic containers, always labeled chicken, vegetable, don't mess with the salt, Dad. Tries to push on me some pills with names longer than the mayor's surname, and wants to hire a nurse. I stubbornly refuse, not because I'm just a grumpy old man, though probably that too, but because I don't need a guard, just a bit of space. And coffee in the morning, and fishing when my heart beats steady and the weather doesn't throw a fit. My old Ford finally gave up the ghost. I didn't mourn. It had been begging for retirement for years, but it still felt like saying goodbye to an old friend. My son, whom I'd warned more than once, "No expensive gifts, I won't accept them," pulled into my yard with a white and green Nissan Leaf, shining like a fridge from a commercial. And he brought a charging box too. The cable reaches everywhere, fits neatly under the carport where I used to keep my boat. "Dad," he said, "saves money, helps the planet, less smoke for your heart." I grumbled that I'd rather have new fishing rods, but I saw his eyes glowing like he'd just won some quiet little battle for both of us, so I waved it off. "Fine, install it." I built the carport and garage myself about half a lifetime ago, but they still hold. The gates have a mind of their own. If you coax them gently, oil them, give them a shove with your shoulder, they'll close. If you rush them, they jam, like that neighbor's dog that once tried to chew the wheel of my Ford. Because of that, I often just leave them ajar. Honestly, there's not much worth stealing. An old mower, spare lamps, boxes of nails I keep for a rainy day that never comes. If someone broke in, they'd probably haul off a few sacks of junk. I'd almost thank them. One day, coming back from the store with a bottle of beer, some white bread, canned corn, and coffee because I can't go without, I see a strange electric car under my carport. Gray, shiny, parked as if the garage had always belonged to it, and beside it a woman. At first glance, young, big glasses, hair in a ponytail, short jacket, but up close, not that young, not that age matters here, but manners do. "Excuse me," I say, "who are you and how did you get here?" "I got lost," she answers, not even closing the navigation app on her phone. "Battery's dead, car's beeping. I saw your charging cable from the road, so I pulled in." Nothing wrong with doing a good deed, I tell myself. My son always says, "Dad, be a decent person. It doesn't hurt." So I smiled and invited her for coffee. "While you charge, we can sit on the porch." She looked at the house like I'd offered her a cot in a raccoon shed. "I'd never step into such a dirty house," she said with disdain, without even glancing at my freshly cleaned kitchen. "But thanks for the charging." Charming, I thought. Oh well, I put away the groceries, brewed coffee, turned on my favorite radio station. When I checked back, no trace of her. Cable unplugged, tossed on the hook carelessly. "Good deed done," I muttered, expecting thanks. Just spoils your karma. The evening slid quietly into night, and I decided not to dwell on it. Weeks later, I returned from fishing, the usual modest catch, enough not to shame myself or the lake, and there it is, the same gray electric car in my garage. Nobody around, just a note on the windshield. "My boyfriend will pick me up from the salon in 4 hours. Thanks." No name, like this was some municipal parking lot. I scratched my head, remembered my stubborn gaits, and looked at the note again. 4 hours? That's practically my whole afternoon nap, which I cherish after fishing, so I thought, fair's fair. If she's temporarily using my space, let it temporarily become her room. I slid the gates shut, helped them jam where they always love to, and locked them up, key in my pocket. 3 hours later, pounding on the gates like her life depended on it. "Hey, old man, my car's trapped in here." "What the hell?" I took my time, finished a cup of water, stepped outside. There she was, same flashy makeup, half a face of outrage, same jacket, puzzle complete, the one who'd sworn she'd never set foot in my dirty house. "Oh," I said, "you again. Sorry, these gates get moody. Sometimes they just shut and won't open right away." "Open them immediately," she snapped. "Working on it," I said, fiddling with the lock, clicking my tongue. Not cooperating. Afraid I'll break it if I force it. My buddy Jimmy's a locksmith, fixed these twice before. He's busy, though. A week, maybe 2. "A week?" Her eyes went wide. "Are you insane?" "Call the police, the sheriff." "Could do that," I agreed. "Sheriff's a friend, but they're not great with locks. Usually they just recommend a locksmith." She hissed. "Fine, call him. Tell him you're illegally holding my property." So I texted Sheriff Clark, "Come by, got a little drama at the gates." He's an old fishing buddy. An hour later, his pickup rolled in, cowboy hat and all. "What's the situation?" he asked. "This old man locked my car in his garage," she shouted. Clark smirked. "Ma'am, you realize you parked on private property without permission." "I was charging." "And left a note," I added, "no name." Clark shook his head, glanced at the hinges. "Could get Terry out here, best locksmith in the county. $500 and these gates will thank him. But he's booked. 2 weeks wait." "500!" she screeched. Next day she came back with her own locksmith, yellow coveralls, tool case, grim look. "Guides are shot, locks jammed, rollers worn out. I'll swap the plate, run some juice, adjust it. $300. "Do it," she barked. He worked well. I even handed him tools. Mine were better. 40 minutes later, gates slid smooth as butter. She jumped into her car, but before leaving, she snapped, "The bill." "What bill?" I asked, puzzled. "For the repair. You locked my car. You pay." "Ma'am," I said gently, "yesterday I offered a free solution. Wait for Jimmy. Today you hired your guy. I didn't order the repair. I'm retired. After meds and bills, my wallet's a wind tunnel." The locksmith hesitated, but gave her the invoice. She cursed under her breath, swiped her card, peeled out of there. Quiet returned to my yard. Later, Susan from the beauty salon called. That client of mine threw a tantrum, screaming about some old miser who locked her car. "Don't worry, everyone knows who's who." "I'm not worried," I said. "My gates work better now, thanks to her investment." We laughed, I hung up, brewed coffee, stepped onto the porch. My son's Leaf stood calm under the carport, plugged in. I patted the hood, not out of love for machines, but gratitude for my son who cares. Sometimes more than I'd like. I like how quiet it drives, like gliding on a warm blanket. No gasoline smell sticking to my jacket. That evening, Clark stopped by to grab his forgotten notebook. We sat on the porch watching fireflies flicker on like someone turning a dimmer over the fields. You know, he said, cases like this often end in court, but here, simple. She trespassed, she paid, you stayed a gentleman. Being a gentleman means remembering doors have two sides, I muttered, sipping coffee. And a cat, he added as my tabby climbed onto my lap. Weeks passed, no more gray car, no more entitled visitor. Rumor had it her boyfriend left for his mother's place. Not my business. My business? Gates that open on the first try, hot coffee, steady heartbeats, and my son arriving on Saturday, hugging me too hard, scolding me for canned dinners, setting up another smart gadget I never asked for, then sitting in silence with me on the porch, listening to the slow breath of our town at night. He's still trying to push the nurse idea, and I'm still resisting, not out of pride, just because I like being useful to myself. Someday I'll give in. Old age has its schedule, its surprises, but for now I manage. Independence is as stubborn as my Gates used to be. What did I learn? Not about anger or revenge, though some might call it subtle payback. I learned that even when someone acts superior, dismisses your help, treats you like furniture, the world has its own creaky but fair balance. Sometimes you need to let the gate stay closed long enough for someone to hear how loud they slam. A few mornings later, I found a postcard in my mailbox, no signature, just sorry for the inconvenience. The corners bent, the handwriting stiff as if from someone unaccustomed to apologies. I stuck it under the fridge magnet, let it remind me sometimes a small sorry's enough to steady a heart. Evenings, I still sit on the porch. Sometimes I think I hear the buzz of an electric motor passing by, but it always rolls on, as it should. My carport's for family cars, for my son's leaf, for old nail boxes, for silence that heals. The rest of the world can find its own outlets and maybe, if they're lucky, a lesson in manners. As for me, I keep looking after myself in my way. Brew coffee, oil the hinges, listen to the clock tick steady, the cat purr in rhythm. And when my son visits, we laugh, recall the gate story, and he always says, "Dad, you sly old fox," and I just shrug. Sometimes old Gates explain house rules better than words, and maybe that's all the wisdom I have left to give. I think Karen didn't even realize it was a lesson. Now she just instinctively keeps away from that place. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.